We'll start with the Mangalacharna, perhaps. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Udirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavatir Naishtiki Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So the seventh chapter in the first canto is titled The Son of Drona, finished, and we are resuming from 176. Anartapa Shamam Sakshat Bhakti Yoga Madhoksaje Lokasya Gyata Vidvamsa Chakre Satvat Samhitam. The material miseries of the living entity, which are superfluous to him, can be directly mitigated by the linking process for devotional service. But the mass of people do not know this, and therefore the learned Vyasadeva compiled this Vedic literature, which is in relation to the supreme truth. So this verse is a transition from the previous set of verses spoken by Sutta Goswami, which was describing the vision of Srila Vyasadeva, and now he begins to speak about the subsequent actions. So Srila Vyasadeva had entered on the recommendation of Narad Muni, he had entered into a trance, and then he had seen Krishna. So he had seen Krishna as Purna Bhagwan. So Purna means complete. So complete means he saw Krishna with his amshas, with the guna avatars, with the purusha avatars. So he saw Krishna completely. He also saw Krishna's Chitta Shakti. And then he also saw Krishna's Maya Shakti standing behind Krishna. He saw Bhakti, that was the chief element of the Chitta Shakti, which is more powerful than all the other Shaktis, and which was competent to destroy the illusion created by Maya. In addition to that, he saw Krishna's Anugraha Shakti, or Krishna's mercy, which controls even the Lord himself. So this is explained in more about Krishna's mercy or Anugraha Shakti is explained more in Canto 10, Chapter 87, in the prayers by the personified Vedas. So in addition to Krishna and his Shaktis, Srila Vyasadeva, he also saw Maya Devi and the Jivas. So he saw Maya Devi, Krishna's external energy, completely under the control of Krishna. And then he saw Jiva, Krishna's marginal energy, completely under the control of Maya in their conditioned stage. Now, he also sees a way out of this bondage, that is making the Jivas subservient to Maya. And the way out that he says is Bhakti Yogam Adhoksaja. So this is the key to escape that bondage. So it is said that if one has an enemy that is more powerful than you, then the only way to defeat that enemy is to make friends with somebody who's more powerful than the enemy. So this is the escape plan that is given by Srila Vyasadeva, that Maya Devi is more powerful than the jivas. But Krishna is more powerful than Mayadevi. So when Mayadevi takes an adversarial stand towards the jiva, so typically Mayadevi leaves the jivas alone in the liberated stage. But in the conditioned state, she takes an adversarial stand and then she overpowers the jiva. So she takes an inimical position. Now, in order to conquer this more powerful enemy, the way out is that jiva takes shelter of Krishna. So this is the same recommendation made by Krishna in chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita when he says, Devya Esha Gunmayi, Mamaya Duratya, Mamevaya Prapadyante, Maya Medantaranti. Where Krishna says the divine energy of mine is very difficult to overcome. But those who are surrendered unto me can easily cross. So Srila Vyasadeva, having seen all this, having seen Krishna, his internal energy, his external energy, the conditioned jiva, he writes the Srimad Bhagavatam, which reveals everything for the ignorant people, the general mass of people who are ignorant. So in the previous verse, Vyasadeva sees that the jiva is manyate anartham, they're closely identifying with unwanted things like the gross or the subtle body. Because of these anarthas, the jiva imposes upadhis or designations about themselves, and thus they begin to divide themselves. So in a lecture, Prabhupada says that this is suffering. And the Srimad Bhagavatam is meant for persons who can finish this life of anartha, meaningless life. But our tactics is that we can utilize any so-called anarthas in the service of Krishna. That is our tactics. That means you have created some anartha, but we can engage even this anartha in the service of Krishna and make it meaningful. So this lecture of Prabhupada becomes more relevant when we read the subsequent verses of this chapter. And so we know as practicing devotees that the process of Yukta Vairagya is how we use anarthas in the service of Krishna. If somebody is very much attached to speaking, they can preach. If somebody is very much attached to administrative work, they can manage temples, and so on. So this also means, and this is an important point for practicing devotees like us, so this also means that the bhakti starts even when the devotee is in an immature stage, fully infested with anarthas. So this gives hope to us. So what is the remediation that Srila Vyasadeva sees? He says, Sakshat Bhakti Yogam Adhok Sajay, directly linking to Krishna through the process of bhakti. So Sutta Goswami, he refers to Krishna as Adhok Sajay. And Prabhupada, in the purport, in the 3rd canto, 19th chapter, he explains that the Lord is explained here to be Adhok Saj, beyond the reach of all material calculation. Aksaj means the measurement of our senses, and Adhok Saj means that which is beyond the measurement of our senses. So interestingly, this name Adhok Saj was given to Krishna by the Brajvasis. After the pastime of Putana, they were very confused about Krishna's possession. And in order to understand Krishna's divinity, they would have to let go of his sweetness. And in order to experience his sweetness, they would have to let go of his divinity. So they finally compromised and they said, we don't know. That he is beyond our senses. Krishna does not make logical sense. So they called him Adhok Sajay. In this particular context, in conjunction with Bhakti Yogam, it indicates that so Krishna is normally beyond material senses. That is adhoksaje. But through the process of bhakti, even the material conditioned jiva, who is materially conditioned, can still connect to him. So we see how the wordplay describes the duality. The Krishna is beyond the material senses, but the conditioned jiva is completely within the material realm. So how can something material connect with something spiritual? So material is jiva, Krishna is adhoksaja, beyond material. But still, Suta Goswami uses both of them in the same verse, and he connects them by the phrase Bhakti Yoga. So which means that the process of Bhakti Yoga will act on the jiva even when he is materially conditioned, and even at that stage will connect him to Krishna. Not to a reflection of Krishna, not to the concept of Krishna, but actually to Krishna. So this is the main theme of the set of verses which will be developed later on. So the Bhakti Yoga that is used in this verse refers to sadhana bhakti, consisting of Shavana Kirtan, etc. It does not refer to Prema Bhakti. And the performance of sadhana bhakti depends on following the instructions of the scriptures or the sadhus. Prema Bhakti, on the other hand, depends on Krishna's Anugraha Shakti, or it depends on Krishna's mercy. So we can say that Prema Bhakti is obviously at a much higher stage than Sadhana Bhakti, and the Sadhana Bhakti becomes the cause of Krishna's Anugraha, which then causes Krishna to bestow Prema in the higher stage. So the point that is made here is again that a jiva can begin to perform bhakti even without waiting for the mercy of Krishna. So in Madhurya Kadamni, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur makes this point, that bhakti does not depend on Krishna. Bhakti depends on the devotees of Krishna. Now, as bhakti progresses, when it invokes the attraction of Krishna, the attention of Krishna, then yes, then the growth of bhakti is a direct result of the increasing mercy of Krishna. So many important tattvas are being presented in this verse that will be developed later on. Another point that is made is that the performance of sadhana bhakti directly destroys the jiva's samsara. So they are known as anartha upasanam in this verse. So the practicing devotee begins to get relief from the sufferings of the samsara directly at the stage of sadhana bhakti. One does not have to become a pure devotee or even an advanced devotee to start experiencing relief from material distress. Even if one is following bhakti based on rules and regulations as per instructions, even at that stage, one begins to get relief from the samsara. Samsara is basically the material entrapments or the suffering. So this is why Rupa Goswami in Nectar of Devotion, he states that the first two stages of bhakti, Kleshangini and Shubhada, are the two early symptoms of sadhana bhakti. So Sutta then next describes in this very verse that what did Narad do with this realization. So what is the realization? The realization that Narad has had Vyasa had so far is that the process of Bhakti Yoga will free the jiva from the entrapment and the suffering of the material world. But Narad's instruction to Vyas was more than that. His instruction was, and this is in 1.5.13, he says that find the root cause and then give a solution to the conditioned souls. So Vyasa, in order to determine how to help them, he has first determined the cause of their suffering, which is the fact that they're bewildered with Maya. He has determined the way out, which is the practicing of Bhakti Yoga. Now, with this understanding, Sutta says, Vidvams. So, Vidvams means the supremely learned. It also means Shatovrata. Vidvams means one who follows the previous acharyas. And it also, in this context, means Srila Vyasadeva. So, Vidvams, Lokasya. So, for the benefit of the general mass of people who are Agyata, who are unaware of this knowledge, what did he do? Chakra Shatvat Samhita. He compiled in relationship to the Lord this Vedic literature. So as per Jiva Goswami, since Vyas saw Abhidaya as Bhakti, which destroys Maya, he advocated the Satvat Samhita called Bhagavatam in order to promote Bhakti as Abhidaya. So Sutta Goswami refers to Krishna as Satvat, which means supreme truth. Also means pure or eternal. And Srila Prabhupada says that this is the most complete description of Krishna. So when we say that Krishna is Satvat, it includes all other names and descriptions of Krishna. So in the introduction of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada makes this distinction between God and absolute truth. So he says God is the supreme controller, but everything comes from the absolute truth. This is Krishna. So everything, whether it is material, spiritual, or the jivas, come from the absolute truth. In the very first verse of the Bhagavatam, Krishna is referred as Satyam Param. There's Satyam Param Dhimahi, which is absolute truth, which subsumes the description of Janmadhyasya Ato Navayat, which is the creator, maintainer, and destroyer. So Srila Vyasadeva, he compiled the Samhita for Krishna, the Purna Purush, Krishna, the complete person. He compiled the Samhita for Krishna, who is Satyam Param, who is the absolute truth. So that's why he calls it as Satvat Samhita. So the Satvat Samhita speaks about the Satvat Param. So the Bhagavatam is unique that it directly goes and talks about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, the Purna Purush, which includes everything else in relationship to Krishna. Okay. So 176. So as I mentioned, these are the key verses in the Bhagavatam. So there's a lot of philosophy that is embedded in these verses. So I'll go to the next, see if there are any questions or comments on this verse.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, so Vyasadeva started meditation. So like we know that Narad Muni, he instructed and then he left, and then Vyasadeva started meditating, and he started seeing these things. So I'm just trying to understand why did he start meditating instead of starting? Is it because he didn't he didn't know what to do at that point, like how to how the answer to basically how to the how was given in meditation or understood in meditation, or
Yes.
just trying to understand why did he sit for meditation basically.
Yes, so your I think your supposition is right, because if you look at the final instructions that Narad gave to Vyasadeva, he says that you're perfect, you're complete yourself, you know everything. So please, please, in the trance of meditation, think about a way to use that to help the general mass of people. And Srila Vyasadeva, following Narad Muni's instructions, he did exactly that. He entered into the meditation and he saw everything as it is. And not only did he see the problem, he saw the solution also. So that was something that Srila Vyasadeva had not explicitly focused on, which is what was lacking in his endeavors.
So when you're saying that he didn't focus on, so basically he didn't focus on meditating on the problem, or he didn't focus on, like previously when he wrote the other Vedic literatures, did he not focus on the problem, or did he not focus on the solution,
So,
or
so one can understand that he he was focusing on the problem, but coming up with an incomplete solution. So everything that Vyasadeva did was for our benefit. So he compiled the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Itihas, the Vedanta Sutras. All that he did was to help us get out of the material entrapment. So he had the focus on the problem, but the solution that he was coming up was incomplete. And that is where he got this um, special enlightenment or extra push from Narad Muni. And when he sees the ultimate solution, then that's what inspires him to write the Bhagavatam.
okay, thank you for.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, so we'll do 177. Yasyam Vaishrumayanayam Krishne Paramapurushe Bhaktirutpadayet Pumsa Shokamo Bhayapaha. Simply by giving oral reception to this Vedic literature, the feeling for loving devotional service to Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, sprouts up at once to extinguish the fire of lamentation, illusion, and fearfulness. So the previous verse was Abhiday, that Srila Vyasadeva had seen the problem, and so we ended the verse with understanding that the process for solving the problem, or the Abhiday, was Bhakti Yoga. This verse is Prayojan, that what is the result of hearing the Bhagavatam that Srila Vyasadeva will write. So the Prayojan is Bhakti Utpadiyate, that it will generate devotion to Krishna. And the second thing is Shokamo Bhayapaha, that it will destroy all inauspiciousness. There's a little bit of circular cause and effect going on over here, because the Abhiday is Bhakti and the Prayojan is Bhakti. So in the previous verse, Srila Vyasadeva says Bhakti Yoga, Adoksajay, that the way to connect to Krishna is Bhakti Yoga. Here his saying is that the result of reading this Vedic literature is Bhakti Yoga. And in pure logic, circular logic is generally rejected because it does not have any external, it does not have external proof. It's kind of like saying that I am tall. Why are you tall? Because I'm not short. So they both are just the opposite sides of the same coin. They don't add any new information. But in this context, this is the only way that something like this can actually sustain. That given the fact that bhakti is supremely independent, it can be only the cause of itself. Because if bhakti was dependent on something else, then then the other thing would become superior to bhakti. So if you have to agree to the supremacy of bhakti, we have to agree to this circular logic that bhakti is the cause of bhakti. Now it's not completely circular, it is spiral in the sense that a little bhakti is a cause of a little bit more bhakti, and a little bit more bhakti is the cause of even more bhakti. So Sutta Goswami uses the term Shruya Manayam, which translates to simply by giving oral reception. So this is oral, A-U-R-A-L. I know it kind of sounds like O-R-A-L, oral reception, but oral is from the mouth and oral is from the ears. So simply by giving oral reception means simply by hearing. Anyone, he says, Pumsha, has to simply hear the Bhagavatam for it to begin to act right away. So the Bhagavatam is so potent that so you see the focus is on hearing. The person does not have to understand the message. The person does not have to act on the message. But simply by hearing the Bhagavatam, the effect of the Bhagavatam is experienced. And it's not that it will give partial results. So he says that it will give bhakti Krishna Paramapurusha. So it will give devotion to Parampurusha, or as in 174, the Purna Purusha, or the Satyam Param, or the Swayam Bhagwan. So it's not that if one is in the preliminary stage, one develops devotion for a partial incarnation of Krishna, or the demigods, or or Brahman. But right from the beginning, it starts giving access to the ultimate goal. In the previous verse, Sutta was talking about sadhana bhakti. So when he saw how can a jiva, when Vyasadeva saw that how can a jiva be unentangled from Maya. So so for unentanglement from Maya, sadhana bhakti is more than sufficient. This verse talks about prema bhakti. So when you're talking about entanglement with Krishna, good way entanglement, then you're talking about prema bhakti. So the verse that he speaks over here is very similar to the Mangalacharan verse, which is Srimad Bhagavatam 112, the Dhamma Projita Kayatavatra Parmo. So the last line of the verse is Ishvara Satyar Hridaya Avaradyute Attakritibi, that the Supreme Lord at once appears in the heart of a devotee as soon as Shushurubish, as soon as he begins to hear. So since the Lord is being captured in the heart, and one can understand that Krishna can only be captured by prema. So one can deduce that the process of hearing of the Bhagavatam, which causes the Lord to be captured in the heart, is at the same level as prema bhakti. So just going to repeat to make the same point again. The previous verse talked about Srila Vyasadev's vision of how does the jiva free himself from the modes of material nature, from Maya Devi. Sadhana bhakti is more than sufficient to do that. This verse talks about how will the jiva become connected to Krishna. And the process that is given over here is prema bhakti. And what is the practical manifestation of prema bhakti? That simply by giving oral reception to the Bhagavatam, simply by hearing the Bhagavatam, not necessarily understanding it, not necessarily practicing it, but simply by hearing Bhagavatam, one gets access to prema bhakti. So the prema bhakti that is described here also includes sadhana bhakti. And we discussed that point in the previous verse also. And because if one is reading this verse and says, okay, now I'm going to be listening to the Bhagavatam, so I may develop attachment for Krishna. But what about my current situation? What about the fact that on a daily basis, I'm being beaten up by the modes of material nature? So Sutta Goswami, he addresses that, and he says that not only will the person develop attraction to Krishna, but he will also become free from Shok, Moha and Bhai. So Shok, Moha and Bhai, what are these? These are the results of one's anarthas. These are the result of material contamination. So Radha Govind Maharaj, he explains that lamentation or shok is about the past. That's something that happened in the past and you are unhappy about it. Why did this happen? Something different could have happened. So that is shok. Then moha or illusion is about the present. That not knowing where you are in the present situation. And fearfulness or bhaya is about the future. So shok is past, moha is present, and bhaya is future. The Srimad Bhagavatam cures all the three phases. So by giving oral reception to the Bhagavatam, one not only develops pure love for Krishna, one also will become free of anarthas. So one may question that how can something so potent be available so easily? Is this, what's the term that they use? Like overselling, over advertisement. Okay, I see somebody's question. I'll take that after I finish this verse.
Hyperbole? Is it hyperbole, Prabhu?
Is it what?
Hyperbole? You're saying that exaggeration, right?
Exaggeration, yeah, like hyperbole, right? You kind of blow something out of proportion. That yeah, it was. I felt like there were a million suns going on in my eyes. If somebody, there's a camera flash, and you said I felt there were a million suns going on in my eyes. So somebody might say that this is hyperbole. This is over advertisement. And Prabhupada, in the purport, he says no. And he explains scientifically why this is possible. So he says, loving devotional service to the Lord begins with hearing about the Lord. There is no difference between the Lord and the subject matter heard about him. So Krishna and Krishna Katha are the same. The Lord is absolute in all respect, and thus there is no difference between him and the subject matters heard about him. So Krishna is Satyam Param. He is the absolute truth. So because of that, there is no difference between Krishna, the personality of Godhead, and Krishna Katha. So then Prabhupada, he delivers the punchline. Therefore, hearing about him means immediate contact with him by the process of vibration of the transcendental sound. And the transcendental sound is so effective that it acts at once by removing all material affections mentioned above. So Prabhupada is explaining that why is simple oral reception of the Bhagavatam so powerful? Because Krishna is absolute. In that absolute form, there is no difference between Krishna and Krishna Katha. So when one is hearing Krishna, it is hearing Krishna Katha, it is Krishna Sampashra. It is as if there is Krishna standing and then you are going and touching Krishna. Which is why all the potencies that one gets from touching Krishna are also delivered when one is coming in contact with Krishna Katha. So Sutta uses the term Bhaktir Utpadayate. So Utpadayate means sprouts or comes up, and he uses the term to indicate that it is not given from outside, that bhakti is intrinsically present. So like when you put a seed in the soil and the seed becomes a tree, then it's essentially the soil that is becoming the tree, because there is nothing else that is going on. The seed acts as the channel to transform the soil into the tree. So similarly, bhakti is intrinsically there in the jiva, but this process of listening to the Bhagavatam will cause the bhakti to sprout. Jiva Goswami, he mentions that the sadhana of hearing will result in Krishna prema. So he's giving a slightly more rigorous explanation, saying that a person might say that if I am not at the stage of prema, how can I execute prema bhakti? So Jiva Goswami is saying that fine, if you think of it in this way, then understand that the sadhana, that reading the Bhagavatam under the guidance of an acharya, by following rules and regulations, will result in Krishna prema. And finally, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that if hearing is so potent, one can only imagine the result of inducing others to hear, speaking the Bhagavatam and inducing others to speak. All activities that were done. So he's extending the mercy. And he's saying that if one considers, if Sutta Goswami is saying hearing is so potent, how much more potent is reciting the Bhagavatam and inducing others to hear? How much more potent is reciting the Bhagavatam and inducing others to speak the Bhagavatam? And all these activities were done by our Srila Prabhupada. Okay, any questions, comments?
So what about chanting, Prabhuji? I mean, this one is written specifically. This scripture is basically written for Kali Yuga, right? As far as I understand.
Yeah.
So we know that chanting the holy name is a Yuga Dharma, as propagated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it seems like Vyasadeva is like saying something else.
So to some extent he is, but not really, because what does the Bhagavatam tell you to do? right? So if you look at the final verses of the Bhagavatam in the 12th canto, so what does Sukadev Goswami say to Parikshit Maharaj? And he says, recites that famous verse, Kalera dosh nide rajan astya ek mahaguna, kirtana deva krishna sya mukta sankaram praje. So, so hearing about Bhagavatam translates to chanting Krishna's name. Now, I think where your question is coming from is the way that we have been introduced to the process of bhakti. So one way of being introduced to the process of bhakti is one hears the Bhagavatam, and then from the Bhagavatam so just by hearing Bhagavatam, one begins to get purified. And through successive stages of purification, one goes from hearing to assimilating the message to acting on the message, which is the chanting of the holy name. Right? So that is the process that is given by Srila Vyasadeva. We have been introduced to Krishna consciousness directly through the process of chanting. And that is the mercy of Mahaprabhu and Srila Prabhupada. And through the process of chanting, we have taken to the reading of the Bhagavad. They are both at the same level. So Krishna Katha is the same as Krishna, is the same as Krishna now. But the Bhagavatam is talking about being introduced to Krishna Katha, and through Krishna Katha we get introduced to Krishna Nam. We have gone through Krishna Nam to Krishna Katha, but ultimately they are the same.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. It's a good question. So I'm trying to read a question that Prabhu has sent. Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam removes inauspiciousness and generates bhakti as indicated in verse 7. But is the same result there for those in lower modes or locked in conditional life? Or does the verse only apply to those in the mode of goodness at least? Isn't there any preliminary qualification for hearing Srimad Bhagavatam to gain the exalted result of bhakti? So thank you. That's a good question. And so on the strength of the verse that we are discussing, the answer is that there is no qualification. That simply by giving oral reception. And the fact that the result of this oral reception is freedom from freedom from moha, bhaya, and what was the third anartha? Shok, moha, bhaya. So what does it mean? It means that the person who's reading it is currently under these three anarthas, right? So no pre-qualification, right? Everybody in the conditioned world is under shok, moha, bhaya, and by reading it, one gets liberated from it.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Actually, I had the same question, but in a different way. So, sadhana bhakti, basically, this is a subset of sadhana bhakti, right? Which will help us to develop attraction towards Krishna, where it will take out shok, moha, and bhai. But at the same point, what about others who do not have bhakti, but we do see people with these shok, moha, bhai not available? Like maybe their focus is different. I don't know how to.
So so freedom from anarthas is so you remember we did 176 and 177. 176 was freedom from anarthas and 177 was developing attraction from Krishna. So in this context, both of them are on the axis of bhakti. That by the practice of sadhana bhakti, one gets freedom from anarthas. By the practice of prema bhakti, one not only gets freedom from anarthas, one also develops strong attraction for Krishna. Now, there are people who may have developed the freedom from anarthas without developing attraction for Krishna. So there are other processes that can take one down that path, but that's the most that they can take one. The most that they can take one down is to the path of neutrality, but not to the path of Krishna Prema.
Got it.
Prabhuji, you're going very fast.
Oh, sorry about that. Is there-
No. These verses are so deep. I just feel like, I just like.
I understand. Is there anything that you would like me to repeat?
I mean, I'm still trying to absorb whatever you've spoken, so I'm still trying to.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to that because, to be honest with you, each of these verses took me several days to understand. So, we don't have that kind of time. But why don't we do it in this way that obviously the recording will be available. If you can let me know before, which reminds me that next Wednesday is Gaur Purnima. So I'm guessing that all of you will be going to the temple, so we won't have the class next Wednesday. We'll have it the following Wednesday. But let's do this: that if you can listen to the lecture again, and any questions that you have, either you can send me a note, and we will revisit the verses, or I can try and answer the questions and share the answers with everybody in the group. Whatever works.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept humble obeisances.
Hare Krishna, Sundar Prabhu.
Prabhu, question. So we're talking about the oral reception hearing. I was trying to compare hearing with the meditation that yogis do. So when we see when we try to compare hearing and yogis doing meditation on the Paramatma, both looks like it's a kind of passive or neutral process. There is no active principle involved. I mean, of course, it is there in a subtle way. When somebody is trying to hear, they have to focus their attention, consciousness on the speaker, and the speaker also has to focus on the subject matter and the audience. So there is an active principle, but on a surface level, the hearing looks like a passive mode, which is similar to the meditation process. So my question is, so I will, just for time being, I will assume that there is no active principle that is there in both the hearing and the meditation process. It is both passive, just for time's sake right now. Under that assumption, if there is no active principle, how can we consider that that is bhakti, that hearing is bhakti? Because if you put both situations, it looks alike, and we know that meditation process is incomplete bhakti. It is some sort of bhakti, but it is not a complete meditation on Supreme Personality of Godhead. So unless my point is, unless there is an active principle involved in bhakti, how can we say that is bhakti? And if hearing, let's say somebody wants to hear, and there is a subject that is presented in the hearing, it says that go and serve the devotees, go and serve the deities. and the person may be so much involved in hearing that he wants to hear more, and he or she is complacent in the hearing activity rather than putting that hearing into practice, the implementing the hearing. I don't know, you are getting my question, Prabhu. Is it a little confusing, or?
Is it anything related to anything and everything should be related to Krishna, right? Prabhuji, is that not the way to see?
So, yeah, thank you, Prabhu. So I guess there is one way that I can address it is, is by refuting the point that you're making, by giving the example of Parishad Maharaj. So Parishad Maharaj was sitting for 7 days and passively hearing the Bhagavatam. He did not get the time to put into action anything. Even when Sutta Goswami says Kalera Doshna Derajan, or even when he glorified in the 11th canto, he glorified deity worship, etc. Parishad Maharaj did not have a chance to do anything, right? But what happened at the end of the 7 days? He went back to Godhead there. So the process of hearing ultimately acts on one's consciousness. Just like the process of deity worship, just like the process of devotee service, just like the process of prasadam seva, and that is what is the ultimate goal. That our consciousness becomes one of accepting Krishna's position as one's eternal master. So the 9 processes of devotional service, we have 2 processes that, according to your standards, are passive. Next, you Shravan and Smaran, they are passive. But I'm sure you must have read that so many times that all the 9 processes are the same. Each one of them will independently take one to perfection. And then there are examples given. Parishad Maharaj through Shravan, and Sukadev Goswami to Kirtan, Dhruva Maharaj through Smaran, different great personalities who, for those 9 processes, were able to perfect their devotional life. So, so my take is that it's not that Shravan is coming down to the platform of Smaran, but it is that Smaran and Shravan are on the same platform if they're both connected to Krishna.
So hearing by itself is complete and enough to create prema bhakti for a conditioned soul. So even without active principle, these hearing, smaran, and kirtan, they can lead one to perfection. That's my understanding. Probably, please clarify.
The understanding is correct. The only thing I would change in the statement you made is the even without active principle, because the active principle is there. The active principle is Krishna consciousness. That is there. In Shravan, that is the active principle. That what makes, and this is actually something that comes up in one of the later verses, Prabhupada writes in the purport, saying that all the itihas and Puranas, they are useless. Because who cares? I'm paraphrasing here, but he says, who cares about what happened 1,000,000 years ago? All those people are dead and gone. So what's the point in great personalities like Vyasadeva spending all this time writing Itihas and Puran? But the reason that they become special is because Krishna steps into them. That's the active principle.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Good question. Anything else?
I just, this is just probably my observation, Prajal, probably correct me if I'm wrong. I just feel like, we're so, like, uh, like, or I don't know, or like at least I am like, I want to take action item from each and every activity. So like I'm trying to derive action item from everything and then, like see where I can apply it. So um, this feeling of being the doer, like that kind of mentality is even here in the spiritual practice, where I'm not like when I'm hearing, I'm not trying to relish the katha. I'm basically trying to extract what I can do from the hearing, um, um, and and um, and do something about it.
So I think that's a good thing because the katha is essentially embedded with instructions that inspire us to take more to the different angas of bhakti. The reason that there are so many angas of bhakti is because we ourselves are multifaceted. So very few of us has the fortitude of Parishad Maharaj to sit for 7 days without eating and drinking and sleeping and hear with rapt attention. Very few of us have that fortitude of Dhruva Maharaj for 6 months to simply meditate on Krishna. So then what's the expedient way for us to do? Is that we do a little bit of Shravan, a little bit of Smaran, a little bit of Kirtan, a little bit of Padya Sevan. We get mercy by serving devotees. We do Sankirtan. So depending on whatever can inspire us at that particular time, we take shelter of that process. And that's why Prabhupada in previous verse, he says that the beauty of bhakti is that we can use anarthas to further our bhakti. So somebody is a good singer and they like singing, so maybe they like singing anyway. And they may be attached to the beauty of their own voice, or maybe somebody likes to hear good music. They may be attached to good music, that's an anartha. Now they can use that anartha in Krishna service. So that takes care of anartha number 1. Anartha number 2 is the person likes to eat good food, so they eat prasad. So that takes care of anartha number 2. Now anartha number 3, that the person is a control freak. So maybe he starts managing the schedule at the temple, or he becomes the temple account manager, and he uses it best in the service of Krishna. So the fact is that because we have so many of them to contend with, we have so many opportunities to engage them also.
Right, Prabhuji. You were talking about the tendencies, like applying our tendencies or whatever we naturally like to do. But I'm just trying to understand if this mentality of like getting something out of the process and actually applying,
Mm-hmm.
is that like not like a very like karma kandik kind of thing that I'm trying to basically not relish the activity itself, but trying to be the doer and be proactive in basically because this thing of being the doer is so ingrained that rather than understanding Krishna's pastimes just or hearing to Krishna's pastimes just for our purification, I'm trying to extract what I can learn from it and where I can apply it in my life.
Right. So so everything that you're saying would be right if it was not in connection with Krishna. But the fact is that when you hear the Bhagavatam and you extract something from it and apply it, how would you apply it? You maybe extract the point Sukadev Goswami talks about chanting and apply it. So you're practicing another anga of bhakti. You extract, I don't know what else can you extract. I mean, because everything that Bhagavatam presents is in relationship to Krishna.
I mean,
So
like
that's,
in Bhakti Shastri, we have this application principle, right? Like, how do you apply practical, how do you apply this in your practical life? Like, that kind of homework is also there, right, as part of the curriculum.
right.
For the practical application, practical, like everywhere, I feel like that practical application is just.
It's ingrained in us. But give me an example of you're talking from personal realization. So give me an example that you heard the Bhagavatam and you found yourself extracting something and applying it, and then you felt distracted by it.
I'm not distracted, but I just feel like instead of like for example, I make notes whenever I listen to classes. So I feel like I'm so absorbed in making notes that I forget to, like, end of the day I just forget what I heard. I mean, rather than relishing what I'm hearing or the class, or getting absorbed in the class, I'm just not able to focus on that, rather than I'm focusing more on making notes and trying to understand the technicalities and getting absorbed in that.
So, so the analogy to that is that let's assume. So have you been to Niagara Falls?
Yes, true.
So when you go to Niagara Falls, or when people go to Niagara Falls, there is one group of people who are constantly taking pictures. So they go on the boat, the Mayor of the Mist. They take pictures. They go into the Cave of Winds. They take pictures. They stand at different points and they take pictures. So they're so busy taking pictures that they don't enjoy the visit to Niagara Falls. And that's an analogy to taking of notes. To extend that analogy further, the person who takes the pictures carries the experience back with him or her and allows him to experience it over and over again. So it's not that you're completely missing out on the experience. You're missing out on perhaps the first iteration of that experience. But anybody who makes notes, and I can relate to it because I myself am a prolific note taker, anybody who will make notes will go back and read their notes several times. You sit and listen, and then you walk away, and fine, you will get once the pleasure of hearing, and then the way our memories are, that we forget about it. But you take the notes. So the notes is basically letting go of short-term gains to getting something like that, but letting go of something short-term to forgetting something that is longer term. Now, the other point that I guess you're making in a more subtle way is that maybe by taking notes, you're missing out on the whole rasa of the Bhagavatam recitation. Somebody is reading the Bhagavatam or discussing the Bhagavatam, and then you would like to experience the upswing of the emotions when Krishna is pulling the chariot, or experience the lamentation of Kunti Devi, when the prayers of Kunti Devi are being read. And if that's part of your question, my answer to that would be that is even more temporary. So you may feel something that is really a spark of a spark that goes away, as opposed to being more deliberate and methodical about the way that you experience the Bhagavatam.
And even the application part, Proji, like so I'm trying to understand, like for example, more than the more than trying to experience things, I'm trying to basically uh, understand it from a technical point of view, like where I can apply this principle, or where I can um, uh, like basically in a very mechanical way, trying to understand and trying to see where it fits the puzzle in my life, or
Right.
which
And
part.
that's your adhikar right now. Right? That's your adhikar. Your adhikar is sadhana Vaidhi bhakti. And without knowing you personally, but that's what all our adhikars are. It's sadhana Vaidhi bhakti. So sadhana Vaidhi bhakti is mechanically following the rules and regulations and following bhakti externally. So that's what we do. When somebody tells us chant, we pick up a bead which has 108 beads on it. We pick up a japmala which has 108 beads on it, and we do that 16 times. You must have had this discussion. I've had this discussion so many times where people say, why 16 rounds? Why not 16,000 rounds? Why not 5 rounds? And there's no good answer for that. The only good answer is that the reason we are doing it is because that's what we are comfortable with right now. We are comfortable with rules and regulations. We're comfortable with restrictions. We're comfortable being told that get up in the morning and chant. And we're comfortable with um, just like when a child is learning something, everything is spelled out for them. These are the 2 lines that are made. You write your alphabets between the lines. The P's and the Q's should not go beyond this line, and that's what they do. And then eventually they become proficient writers. So um, if you're acting as per your adhikar, it's a safe place for you. You obviously we need to aspire to go beyond that, but prematurely going beyond that. So if you're aspiring to sit in the Bhagavatam class and shed spontaneous tears, it's probably not going to happen. So if you're aspiring to get attracted to a certain kind of bhakti based on your Siddha Pranali, that's not going to happen. So what's your adhikar right now? Your adhikar right now is that I get the instructions, I mechanically find out how and where to best fit them, and I externally follow them through. So it sounds very mundane and prosaic, but it's the process. The beauty is in following the process.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. So for some reason there's no time coming on my computer. So somebody, so Prem Kishore Prabhu, once it's 9:15, if you can tell me.
Another 5 minutes.
Okay. So we'll do 178. Sasaimetam bhagvatam kritvanukramya chatmajam shukam madhyapayamasha nivriti niratam munihi. The great sage Vyasadeva, after compiling the Srimad Bhagavatam and revising it, taught it to his own son, Sri Sukadeva Goswami, who was already engaged in self-realization. So, previous set of verses, Sutta Goswami, through the agency of Srila Vyasadev's realization, he defined the problem, he presented a solution, and he gave a practical understanding of what the solution is, which is essentially reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. Now he begins to speak about the disciplic succession of the Bhagavatam. So, what makes the Bhagavatam special? Where does it come from? So, 2 interesting points, especially interesting points made in this verse is Vyasa Kritva Anukramya, which means that he compiled and revised the Bhagavatam. So it does not say that he wrote the Bhagavatam. It says that Kritva Anukramya. Anukrama means follow through. So he compiled and revised the Bhagavatam. And there are different ways to understand this. So one way is that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he considered the Bhagavatam to be a natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra because written by the same author. The Garud Puran, it glorifies the Bhagavatam as follows. It says that the Bhagavatam is perfectly complete. It is the purport of the Vedanta Sutra. It establishes the meaning of Mahabharata. It is a commentary on Gayatri and completes the message of the Vedas. It is the Samved amongst the Puranas, spoken directly by an incarnation of God. So this is Vyasadeva. This work, consisting of 12 cantos, hundreds of chapters, and 18,000 verses, called Srimad Bhagavatam. So this gives us one understanding that Srila Vyasadeva had previously given the message in the Mahabharata. He had given it in the Vedanta Sutras, and he had given it in the Vedas. Now he revised and presented the same message in the Bhagavatam. So that is why we say that the Vedanta Sutras is a commentary on the Vedas, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is a natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. So it's one way of understanding it is that the message was compiled and revised and presented in the Bhagavatam. The same message that has been given in the other pieces of literature, the Vedas, the Vedanta Sutras, etc. The second understanding is that when Srila Vyasadeva compiled the 18 Puranas, he compiled the Bhagavatam at that point. But that was an abbreviated form of the Bhagavatam. And later, after having instructed by Narad Muni and having his own realizations, Vyasadeva revised the Bhagavatam and replaced the previous Bhagavatam. So according to some acharyas, this is the understanding. One of the questions that is asked over here is, what is the length of the Bhagavatam that was compiled by Vyasadeva? Because if you see, the Bhagavatam is nested conversations. So far in the Bhagavatam, Sukadeva Goswami has not even appeared. Right? He appears at the end of the first canto. Basically, at the end of the 19th chapter of the first canto, Sukadeva Goswami appears. Many people consider the Bhagavatam to start after the second canto. But Gopi Parandan Prabhu, who passed away now, but a very learned disciple of Srila Prabhupada, he explains. So he says that Jiva Goswami in Tattva Sandarbha gives his opinion that Vyasadeva spoke the entire length of the Bhagavatam in 18,000 verses to Sukadeva, including the verses that Sukadeva Goswami hadn't yet spoken to Parikshit, and the others that were still not spoken at Naimisharanya. So within the inside conversation, there are two outside conversations. One is between Sukadeva Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj, and the other is between Sutta Goswami and the sages of Naimisharanya. So Gopi Parandan Prabhu says that the Bhagavatam that was compiled by Srila Vyasadeva and spoken to Sukadeva Goswami contained all these conversations. So he's telling Sukadeva Goswami what he will speak in the future. So Srila Jiva Goswami explains that Vyasadeva was Trikalagya. He knows the past, present, and future, and therefore he knew what the Bhagavatam would appear like. Jiva Goswami also makes the point that Bhagavatam is actually eternal. That whereas it may not have been revealed to the common populace, since it is eternally existing, it was revealed to the devotees of Krishna by the mercy of Krishna. So the Bhagavatam in this 18,000 verse form has been present since forever, and that's why that's the Bhagavatam that was compiled by Srila Vyasadeva. The Chatushloki Bhagavatam and the intermediate size version spoken by Brahma and by Narad are just abridgments. We can understand the situation of the Bhagavatam as a secret Shruti, while it is publicly considered a Smriti to be like that of other Shrutis. So Gopiparanam Prabhu makes this point that the Bhagavatam comes in the category of Smriti, which is what the Puranas and the Itihas are. But he says actually it is a secret Shruti, which means that it is non-different from the Vedas. It is co-eternal and coexistent with the Vedas. And he gives the example of the Brihad Arnakya Upanishad, which is obviously a part of the Vedas. And he says these include conversation between Janak Maharaj and Yagyavakya Rishi. So he says one can understand this as an eternal text that is like a script that is read by the characters whenever they appear on the historical scene. So, so the short understanding is that when Srila Vyasadeva compiled the Bhagavatam, he compiled it in its entirety. Since this also talks about Sukadeva Goswami, Prabhupada talks about Sukadeva Goswami's antecedents, and we have talked about it ourselves, so I'll just talk about it briefly. In Govind Lila Amrita, Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami considers Sukadeva Goswami to be Sukha, one of Krishna's parrot. And he came as a manifestation of Radharani's mercy to the conditioned soul. He heard the Bhagavatam from Lord Shiva when Shiva was speaking it to Parvati Devi. And when Lord Shiva ran to kill him, he entered into the mouth of the wife of Srila Vyasadeva. Her name was Jabali or Pingala. And then he appeared from the womb. There is a slightly different description of the appearance of Sukadeva Goswami given in Devi Puran that talks about Vyasadeva performing austerities to have a son. And by the strength of his austerities, Indra got bewildered, or scared rather. So he sent what he does typically. So he sends a beautiful Apsara by the name of Gritachki. And when Gritachki came and approached Vyasadeva, she became scared of being cursed by Vyasadeva. So she assumed the form of a parrot and flew away. But Vyasadeva was momentarily attracted by the beauty of Gritachki, the Apsara, and Gritachki, the parrot. And he discharged semen, which fell on the Arnaki wood that he was going to burn for the Yagya. And then Sukadeva Goswami manifested from there. So Burijan Prabhu, in his explanation, he says that the Devi Puran is an Upapuran, considered to be inferior to the Mahapuran Bhagavatam. So we give more credence to the description given in the Mahapuran. And also he says that both the explanations are possible because they could have happened at different kalpas. Another interesting thing is that Srila Prabhupada talks about Sukadeva Goswami in the 9th canto. This is in chapter 21, where the lineage has been discussed, and there is a mention of Sukadeva Goswami having a daughter by the name of Sukanya, or I believe her other name was Kritvi. And Srila Prabhupada explains that Sukadeva Goswami was a lifelong celibate. He did not marry. But when he was being harassed by his parents, harassed in a good way, by Srila Vyasadeva to marry, so he created an image of himself. Prabhupada calls it as a duplicate Sukadeva, and gave it to his parents and saying, you do whatever you want with him. And he went into the forest to perform austerities. So it is this duplicate Sukadeva Goswami that accepts a wife and has a child and becomes a grahastha. So this ends the section 175 to 8. This ends the Chaturshloki, and this ends the section about the essence of the Bhagavatam. That what is the causes of suffering, what is the process of liberation, and how it can be practiced. So I'll stop over here and see if there are any further questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, here Sarangadas.
Hare Krishna Saranga Prabhu.
Krishna Prabhu, this is a different question. While you were talking about the the completeness of Srimad Bhagavatam, Vyasadeva has spoken all the verse, and it was ever existed and was just a compilation. Can we take the same thing for Bhagavad Gita as well, because it was ever always there?
Yes, Prabhu. So it is mentioned that all the Vedas, the Shrutis, the Smritis, Purans, Itihas, they're Auparishyam, and they are eternal. So they don't have any. So even though we say that this particular sage spoke this particular sage spoke this particular logic or spoke this particular Puran, but like the point Gopiparanam Prabhu is making is that they're essentially empowered personalities who are speaking of a script that has been always existing.
And what about when we say that Vyasadeva was telling Lord Ganesh to write Bhagavad Gita? He was relating and Ganesh was writing. When the compilation was taking place.
Right. So same point. So Ganesh actually wrote the Mahabharata, which Bhagavad Gita has a part of it. So it's the same point that all these incidents are eternally recorded. It's a little bewildering to the mind because we are used to thinking of time linearly, that there is now and then there is tomorrow, and now is separate from tomorrow. It does not hold true when we speak about when we speak about time in relationship to Krishna. So from Krishna's perspective, the Mahabharata has already occurred, is always occurring, and will occur in the future simultaneously. And so the incidents, while we think about it chronologically, for him it is basically looked upon it in a different way. So when personalities like Srila Vyasadeva record the events, in one way they're recording the event that just transpired. In another way, those events, they have already been recorded. And all that he's doing is that he is re-recording them.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Srimad Bhagavatam, compiled by Vyasadeva, is very prominent in our sampradaya. Whereas if we see Bhagavad Gita, other sampradayas, other four Vaishnava sampradayas, it is kind of a top priority, whether it is of Sri Vaishnava or Kumar Sampradaya or the other one Sampradaya. Whereas when it comes to Srimad Bhagavatam, among the Puranas, at least what I know from Sri Vaishnava is they don't consider Bhagavatam as the cream. For them, it is more Vishnu Puran written, compiled by Parashar Muni. That is their main basis, and also Garuda Puran, and at least these two Purans are more prominent in Sri Vaishnavism. And even within Madhva Sampradaya, Bhagavatam is there, but I don't see the Madhva followers too much stressing on Bhagavatam. So it is very prominent since Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, or maybe Madhavendra Puri's time. But before that, we don't see. But we see from Vallabha Sampradaya, it is very prominent. So my question is, when Vyasadev separated different Puranas, which includes Bhagavatam, and assigned it to different qualified personalities, and Shukadev Goswami was the one who was in charge of Srimad Bhagavatam. Why was there a disconnect from Srimad Bhagavatam as a highest Puran? After Shukadev Goswami, we don't hear much about Bhagavatam until Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, whereas the other Puranas are carried along nicely in the Sampradaya. Can you comment on the disconnect that was missing for last like 4,500 years?
It's a good question, Prabhu. I probably cannot comment on it completely because I don't have knowledge about like what the other sampradayas were doing. I mean, factually speaking, so like, you know, Sridhar Maharaj, right? Sridhar Maharaj is a prominent commentator on Bhagavatam, and he, you know, he came long before Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he's not the only commentator on the on the Bhagavatam, but was considered by Mahaprabhu to be the superlative one. But I have no way to substantiate or refute the statement you're making that the Bhagavatam was, so to speak, lost between the time that it was spoken by Sukadeva Goswami and the time that it was revived by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The closest equivalent that I can draw your attention to is that if we consider the Bhagavatam as an equivalent to bhakti, because Bhagavatam propounds bhakti. From the very first page to the last page, it is bhakti. And that we have a little bit more understanding that the process of bhakti did become progressively weaker with the onset of the age of Kali. So then perhaps there is some substantiation to the fact that the Bhagavatam also became limited. Why that happened, we know, because of the influence of the age of Kali. Why did the Bhagavatam get revived again? We also know that because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came as the most merciful incarnation of Krishna, and he re-established the process of bhakti and re-established the study of the Bhagavatam.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Pretty quick logistics question. Like, if for example, if for some reason we are not able to have class on Wednesdays, like, is it possible to like have it on Friday or something of that week? Like, for example, next week we won't be having on the Wednesday. It can be pushed it to Friday or some other day, if it works for everybody.
So I had proposed it to Prem Kishore Prabhu, but he shot down my proposal.
No, Prabhu, you asked me for Thursday. So Thursday, this same account is being used for Bhakti Shastri. So
Yeah.
availability is not there. And I don't know about Friday though. Friday, if you're available, I can check it on that.
Fridays, we have Namat at our house, Prabhu.
Yeah.
So Fridays won't work for me, but
Maybe Tuesday or Monday.
Monday would work. Tuesday from 8 to 9, we have Sarang Prabhu's there. So we have Chaitanya Charitamrita discussion. So Tuesdays and Fridays evenings are there, but Monday would work. Monday and Thursday work for me. Thursday, if it is taken, then Monday would work.
So then can we have it next Monday?
I'm definitely fine by it if the other devotees are okay and if we have access to the
If access is a problem, I can see if I can also create a Zoom account.
if you can create a Zoom account, then probably the ideal day for me would be Thursday.
Okay.
But this is assuming that it's okay for the other devotees also.
It's fine with me. I don't know about others.
Yeah, okay, maybe offline, maybe Prem Kishore Prabhu, you can
I'll
just
check it out and I'll let you know, Mataji. Okay.
Yeah. So for me, Mondays and Thursdays will work, and between the two, Thursdays is a little better.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. And if it is a little bit early, is it okay, Prabhu? Or later?
For me, early is better because I'm on the East Coast, but I know Midwest it's a problem because it then runs over,
If it is Thursday, I think it is from 7 to 8 will be available.
7 to 8. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
7 o'clock Eastern won't work for me, Prabhu. 7:30 is okay.
Okay, then. Okay. Okay, I'll check it out and let you know. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. I'll end now. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubheva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki jai.
Bye.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Tagore Premanande. Hare Krishna.